a 2025 F2 pre-season testing. If we look here, this is the amount of laps that each driver did across the 3 days. And we've given here a sum of the amount of laps they've done. Now, the driver sum itself is not as important as the team sum, but I want to point out the 2024 F3 champion Leonardo Fornaroli has done the most laps of any driver at 231. Other drivers that have come close to matching him are Roman Stanek, Ratomo Miata, Victor Martins, and Christian Mansell. Now, I also want to talk about the laps in terms of the quality of the laps, because in testing I've noticed a lot of drivers did a lot of installation laps. So that's where they go do an out lap and an in lap. Unfortunately, I don't have data for the installation laps and who's doing the long runs. When I was watching, I tried to watch a little bit of the live testing. I noticed Alex Dunn and Christian Mansell were doing a lot of runs on the last day, a lot of long runs. I think that's a good sign for them. But unfortunately, Christian Mansell's not there actually. But Omri Cadil is very experienced. He might help with the car setup, car development. I've given each driver a rating out of 10 for their laps. The drivers that struggle with the amount of laps and the teams, well, I'd rather look at the team, right? So the team that did the most amount of laps was actually Invicta. They're the only team to break the 450 mark, and only 3 teams broke the 400 laps barrier. So ART is very close behind with 449. Rodin have 425. The teams that struggled the most is Trident and Van Amersfoort. Those, I think, and High Tech. I'm not particularly impressed with High Tech at all. Last season they put in so many laps, but this year they haven't put in a lot of laps at all. I think they can slide back down the order. I mean, obviously testing isn't everything. I think you got to look at how good, in terms of collecting data, Invicta and ART have been, particularly those 2 teams. Now, what this represents is day 1, day 2, day 3, where the drivers were in terms of, the times at the end of the session. Now, the times at the end of the testing sessions are not really indicative of anything. However, what I've done, just to try and make it more accurate, I've put day 1, day 2, day 3, and then I've put it again, and I've removed any sessions where I think the driver was not pushing to the limit. So using that, the average highest finishing position in the testing times was Victor Martins. He was averaging 6.1, followed by Gabriele Mini at 6.7. Then Ratomo Miata at 7.6. And Alex Dunn also at 7.6. Again, want to mention Alex Dunn. He's across the 6 sessions. He's finished all the sessions in the top 15. That's a very good effort from him. All other drivers that have consistently finished in the top 10 include Sebastian Montoya, Arvid Lindblad, Richard Verschoor, and Pepe Marti. Now, these numbers, this number here is a rating for the driver based on how they've done in terms of their lap times and testing. Although it doesn't tell you much, alright, the testing times, but I think it gives you an idea, a very vague idea of where they might be in terms of their pecking order at the beginning of the season. And these, and I think I've made this here. So I think the main column to look at is overall rating. This column here is the most important, and in terms of it looks at the lap time and it looks at the amount of laps the driver did and gives them a rating. And then over here, but I've put it in order. So the top driver after testing is Victor Martins. Second driver is Leonardo Fornaroli. Third and fourth drivers sort of tying is Gabriele Mini and Ratomo Miata. The fifth and sixth drivers tying is Arvid Lindblad and Christian Mansell. We know Christian Mansell is not there. Then Alex Dunn and Roman Stanek. These drivers have a high rating of 8.5 or more. So they've done a lot of laps. They've finished in the top 10 in most of the practice sessions. They're looking strong for the start of the season. And then it's very tight behind that. Some of the drivers that you can predict at the back of the grid based on the testing. Some of the teams, we've got Shane Shields, Max Esterson, we've got the two VAR drivers, we've got the two Dams drivers. In the lower half of the midfield, we've got the two high-tech drivers. I'm a little bit disappointed with how testing went for them, and I know that it's the second season of the ground effects cars for F2, but I still think, especially if you've got two new drivers, you want to be getting on top of the car. I'm sorry I've misspelt Sebastian Montoya, but this is just based on testing, and so you can see, I don't want to say that it's a championship prediction. You can take it like that, I suppose. Victor Martins first, Leonardo Fornaroli second. I wouldn't be surprised to see Victor Martins win this championship, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Leonardo Fornaroli do well. But I just feel like it's telling us something about the way this season is going to start. I think Dams and High Tech are on the back foot. I think VAR are struggling. I think Trident are struggling. I know Sammy Megatuna looked quick. But still, I think Trident are going to struggle. I think Sebastian Montoya and Pepe Marti are struggling compared to their teammates. I'm surprised. I'm expecting Pepe Marti to be there, up there with Arvid Lindblad, because it's his second season, but this is saying he might struggle. Oliver Goethe is fairly close to Richard Verschoor. If that helps MP, I'm not sure. That could be a dark horse team. They've been getting stronger all the time recently, have MP Motorsport. Yeah, but just gives you an idea of testing. That's all this is about. So as you can see, some of the drivers that were worst in terms of their position were Sheehan Shields, Jack Crawford, second weakest. I'm not confident for Jack Crawford based on this that he's on top of his qualifying gremlins. Kush Miney, his teammate, is the fourth slowest. John Bennett near the back. Not so bad from Rafael Villagomez. Dirksen, I'm surprised to see him at the back. That's Bogdanovic. And Max Esterson, no surprise. Fornaroli. Of course, you have to remember some of these sessions, they're not pushing 100%. They're only doing long run pace, whereas someone else is trying to go quickly. Testing. Well, I think, and again, you look at the amount of laps, you've got to see who's done the most amount of laps. It's Invicta and ART and then Roden, right? And who's done the most amount of laps? It's Trident, it's High Tech, it's Dams, and then when you look here, Trident, Max Esterson and Megatune, if the average is outside the top 10, I look at that, the high-tech pairing, and look, Bogdanovic is outside the top 10. Browning is reasonable at 9.9. I look at Van Amersfoort, Bennett and Villagomez, they're outside the top 10. Dams are outside the top 10. I feel like these teams are on the back foot at the start of this year. But of course, it's a long season. Teams develop at different rates. But traditionally, the best teams have been Prema. Prema are definitely looking stronger at this time than they were last year. ART look like they're really on top of things. Even Ratomo Miata has looked quick in F2 testing. And Invicta, as I said, they've put in the most amount of laps. Teams champion last year. So they're in a strong position. Who else is there? Yeah, Prema's done a lot of laps. Campos looks strong. Arvid Lindblad topped one of the sessions. Pepe Marty's had a couple of top 10s. They look strong. ART and Invicta look strong. Prema looks strong, not at the strongest. Roden looked like the dark horses. I think it's a shame they lost Christian Mansell. Some of the other teams you kind of expect they're going to struggle, like Trident, AIX, I don't think are too bad, but they could do with maybe an upgrade on the drivers. I don't think Sheehan Shields is that bad, So just testing, that's my vibe, from testing. I think ART and Invicta are up there. The others have a bit of catching up to do. Prema are stronger than they were. As I said, Dams, High Tech, Trident, they're struggling. Van Amersfoort struggling. I think so. I think Van Amersfoort aren't that bad. But let's see. It's very close to the first race. All shall be revealed very soon. Although, that said, the first race is at Melbourne. It's a whole month before the second race. Melbourne is not necessarily the most representative track, so maybe this testing at Barcelona will tell us more than maybe one race at Melbourne. Maybe this is important information if we want to have a deeper understanding of this season's F2 grid and pecking order.